Yamamoto Nutrition, proud sponsor of RX Muscle. Visit YamamotoNutrition.com.
Welcome back to Live With, brought to you by Yamamoto Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today's guest is IFBB Women's Bodybuilding Pro, Aleesha Young. Welcome.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, we haven't talked since you won the USA Championships a few years back, huh?
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yeah, you've had a lot going on in your life since then too, huh? A lot
Right.
of drama.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show and for just giving me an opportunity to talk about these few things.
Sure.
Before we start anything, though, I have gotten some criticism from the other athletes saying that I don't respect them. And I just want to make very clear that I respect any athlete that's willing to put themselves through a contest prep, through a diet, to push when they feel like giving up. And I honestly have the utmost respect for every athlete that stands on that stage. So that's, just the first thing that I wanted to get out there. Being upset about a placing or whatever doesn't mean I disrespect any other athletes.
Right. I understand. A lot of times people like if you say that you didn't agree with the judging, a lot of times people assume that you're condemning the people that beat you, and that's not the case because you're not judging. You might not be happy with your placing, but that doesn't mean you're mad at the other people who beat you.
Right, right. And at the end of the day, it's not their decision. It's not their fault. Like, I'm not mad at them personally.
Right. Now, you won the USA back a number of years ago. We interviewed you. I remember you were in your 20s. I think you were 29 when you won the USA Championships. And I said to myself, wow, this girl is going to have a really good career in women's bodybuilding, assuming that women's bodybuilding is still around. And luckily, thanks to the Wings of Strength people who have been supporting women's bodybuilding these past several years, since they removed it from the Olympia, we've been having women's bodybuilding shows on a regular basis. I know we had a show in Puerto Rico. We had the Omaha Pro that just took place, the one you were in. And, you finished virtually last, okay? 7 out of 8 girls. The 8th girl didn't finish or something like that. And it was, a lot of people were very surprised, myself included. I didn't think you were the last place body up there for certain. Could you have been a little tighter? Maybe things didn't go quite as the way you wanted, sure, but you certainly weren't the last place girl up there. And I think we talked earlier and you told me that you had spoken to the judges, and what did they tell you was the reason why you placed so poorly?
So, probably the most frustrating thing, I'll just tell you the only feedback I really got, because when I approached one judge, he refused to make any comments on me or give me any criticism, any feedback, which was super weird. I was told and only directed to talk to the head judge. Nobody else could give me an opinion.
Who was the head judge?
Tim Gardner.
Okay.
So the feedback that I did get is that I would place better if I dropped about 20 pounds of muscle.
20, not 2. 20 pounds?
And
okay.
20. I mean, Dave, honestly, I didn't lose 20 pounds of muscle on hospital bed rest during my whole pregnancy and 8 months of breastfeeding. Like, I genetically am not going to lose 20 pounds of muscle. And that's the part that makes me so sad and so frustrated is, as a little girl, I hated having muscle. I had a ton of muscle. I was an 8-year-old little girl that refused to wear short sleeve shirts because I was embarrassed I had such big arms. And I felt like I had finally found something that would embrace what I am good at genetically. And they've also, just like the rest of society, said, you're too muscular.
Yeah. Well, here's my problem with the whole women's bodybuilding sport, and people might not want to hear it, but I don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. They created women's physique because they thought the women bodybuilders were getting too big. Then Wings of Strength came in and supported women's bodybuilding so that it would not disappear. So my angle on the whole thing is that if they're going to have two categories, there should be a distinction between them. And as far as I've seen, women's physique has gotten bigger and harder, and women's bodybuilding, they're trying to now rein back, or I don't even know who is trying to rein it back, but they're trying to make the girls small. They want them to be smaller, more mainstream. That's a mistake, because then you have no distinction between these two classes. You might as well just merge the classes and forget, you know, one or the other. So for me, them telling you that to lose 20 pounds is ludicrous. I would have said maybe like 3 to 4 pounds. You could have been a little tighter, you know.
Sure,
but
sure.
That's, I mean, super critical. That's ridiculous to tell you to lose 20 pounds, because then you'll be a physique competitor. You might even be a figure competitor at that point.
Yeah,
so
I don't even think it's possible. I honestly, I don't think people realize, like, genetically, like, I can pack the muscle on.
Right.
But to get that super shredded, lean look is totally against my genetic makeup. And it really bothers me when people look at somebody, quote unquote, out of shape and associate that with being lazy or not being committed. Right. It's just as much genetic to be able to get shredded as it is for me to pack on 20 extra pounds of muscle.
What did you weigh on stage in Omaha?
I was close to 170.
Okay. And, you know, what do you think Helly Nielsen weighs when she's on stage, or Iris, you know?
Dave, she's 7 inches taller than me.
Right. But I'm just saying, these girls are big though too, is what I'm saying. So women's bodybuilding is about big musculature, feminine face. Feminine face. That's what it should be about.
Now, what makes me really sad for the sport as a whole is I've actually gotten contacted by a few big girls that I think are great for female bodybuilding that have said, well, fuck, now what?
Yeah, right.
You know, like, they have now put off what I think the definition of bodybuilding is. They've put these big girls off of it.
Right.
And they don't want to spend the money to fly there. They don't want to invest the money to compete. And if that's what they're trying to do, I mean, it's not going to work.
Well, if that's what they're trying to do, I'm going to take my female women's physique competitors that are a little on a larger size, and I'm just going to push them into bodybuilding, because they'll win all the shows, you know, because of their aesthetics. But I think it's a big mistake. First of all, as far as I'm concerned, Iris Kyle is still the greatest woman bodybuilder out there. Still, I don't know how much longer she could be that way, or she could ride that train. I'm kind of sad that she didn't do the Rising Phoenix show last year, because despite all the controversy, I know that Steve Weinberger and Jim Mannion gave her the go-ahead to do that show, and she kind of just had a bad taste in her mouth about it. But I still think she's the best, and if she's still the best, then you certainly, at your size, are right up there next to her. You know, so once again, she might have better conditioning than you do, but that's what women's bodybuilding is about. It's about building muscle and keeping it feminine. You know.
Right. But I feel like she also has 12 years on me.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Saying, I understand that, but I'm saying you match up against her better than these other girls do. So how could they tell you you're too big if Iris Kyle is 10-time Miss Olympia?
Right. Well, and the thing that is now sad is you can't have somebody go into Chicago that is a huge, which is the next show. Yeah. That is a huge, big female bodybuilder, and now let her win, because that's going to make this Omaha show look like even more of a joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
because, like, personally, like, I don't know all the girls that are competing in Chicago, but like I love Monique Jones. I think she's great. She's a huge female bodybuilder. But if she goes to Chicago and she goes and wins, then it's going to make Omaha look even that much worse.
Well, my advice to you would have been to go to Chicago and come in tighter.
Nope, it's not going to happen. Listen, I have way too much respect for myself. If this would have been a second, third, or even maybe fourth place, this interview probably wouldn't even be happening. But the fact that Tim Gardner promotes all of their shows, listen, I respect myself as an athlete way too much to put myself through that. Like, and let me tell you why. During prejudging, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I think it's very relevant. Okay. So prejudging, we had 8 of us on a tiny stage, all lined up in alphabetical order. My last name is Young, so I, of course, am on the end, which is fine. But I was literally standing behind the podium. I might as well have been Sean Ray announcing the show. I hit every mandatory pose behind the podium with no light.
Right.
When I hit my side poses, I almost fell off the stairs to get off the stage.
Why wouldn't they break it down to smaller groups like they normally do?
I've never been to a show. He didn't make a single call out. There were no call outs made. There was an even number of us. So just like you said, split us up into 4 and 4.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my point. Like, I respect every athlete up there, but I don't feel like they respected every athlete up there. They spent over an hour on the bikini girls, comparing, swapping, changing. They could not get the female bodybuilders on there and off there fast enough. Oh. Like, they just wanted to be done with us. And I wasn't the only one that was frustrated with that. I mean, they cut our prejudging single routines by 15 seconds. They cut our night routines by 20 seconds. Just things that, as an athlete, I mean, you've worked so hard, whether I was the best athlete or the worst athlete up there, I have never felt so disrespected. I never once was compared to any of the top 5 girls. There are no pictures of it. And then, let me tell you this, at the night show, this is even where it gets weirder. At the night show, again, we're all on one line. The first call outs he made at the night show were the bottom 3. So me and the other bottom 2 ladies.
Right.
He said, audience, please don't get excited. These aren't the first call outs. This is just another round of judging. So he never ever wanted me to stand anywhere near any of the other top 3, 4, 5. I personally think because he didn't want the criticism that would go along with that, me standing next to them.
Right, right.
But people can do a side-by-side shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of weird. You know, like I said, I feel that they look like, I don't know who it is, because I know it's not the organization. I know it's not Steve Weinberg. I know it's not Jim Mannion, because I've talked to them about it. They want the best bodybuilders up there. They wanted Iris Kyle in that Rising Phoenix show. She didn't do it. I feel like the people who are behind this women's physique movement are trying to get the big girls out of there, because they didn't want Iris in that Rising Phoenix show last year. That was evident from the interview. If you go back and watch the interview with me and all that happened to her, and that was very accurately described. You know, I was kind of a little, and Tim and I have talked about this, I was a little disturbed by Tim's actions there, because he kind of didn't back Iris on this one. And, you know, maybe the same thing is being done with you. I don't know. I don't know why they would want to get rid of bigger girls when that's what the whole movement was, to save women's bodybuilding. Yeah.
But you know what's so weird, and, you know, not to pat myself on the back, but I'm sorry, like, my fan following is bigger than all of those girls put together.
Yeah, I know. I got a crazy amount of followers.
Listen, and this is the truth. And I'm just telling you this because I know you weren't at the show, so I'm just going to give you a little behind-the-scenes experience. I had a line of people asking me for pictures. Will you sign this? Which I love. I love the fans. I love being around people that support muscle. And my husband, you know, rightfully so, was super frustrated. He's like, dude, why would you want a picture with the last place winner? Don't you want a picture with the champion? But literally, like, nobody, if they want female bodybuilding to stay alive, then bring the girls that the fans are interested in. And if you're not going to do that, then don't complain that the fans don't want to come and buy tickets.
Well, don't you think it's messed up that that the Wings of Strength, you know, promotional team out there in Phoenix pushed Irish out of that show last year? You don't think that that's kind of screwed up? That Miss Olympia, who's 10 times, who's got all this publicity and everyone knows who she is, that they would push her out of the show?
Okay, Dave. Obviously it's different than the Olympia. They didn't want us at the Olympia. So requiring her to qualify, I can understand that.
Right, but Jim Mannion already said that that's not going to happen. She doesn't have to qualify. the promoter doesn't run the show. The IFBB runs the show. They make the rules, and then the promoter sticks to the rules. And Iris was playing by the rules. She didn't have to qualify, winning the Olympia. No Olympia champ ever has to. They can do any show they want. That's the rules. And so, I mean, the fact that they pushed her out or try to push her out, and then they just left a sour taste in her mouth. To me, that's kind of messed up. I don't care whether Iris Kyle worked to promote women's bodybuilding or not, just by the fact that she's Miss Olympia is promoting the sport, don't you think?
Right. I mean, I do think, though, as a champion and her being the champion for as long as she was, she's missed a lot of good opportunities. Listen, she knew when Arnold was interviewing her that was going to be the last Arnold that they had female bodybuilding. And instead of taking that opportunity on stage, live in front of thousands of people and questioning him on it,
right,
and saying, hey, like, at least being a voice for the rest of female bodybuilders,
right,
I think she just like rolled over and took it like a lot of these other athletes do,
right,
and missed a good opportunity, because at that point we knew female bodybuilding was going away, and it went away with her as the reigning champ.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So, I don't know.
Well, you're right. I think she missed her opportunity to say something then, but what does that have to do with her trying to come back and reinvigorate it now, Because
I think it ended with her there. I don't know. I think they're looking for, and here's another very valid point. So they're saying they want the girls to be more feminine. They want the girls to be a little bit softer. And I think they are getting a little bit confused between, to me, having more muscle doesn't equal being more masculine.
No, I agree with you.
I mean, you can have 30 pounds more of muscle as long as you don't have a 5 o'clock shadow and sound like Barry White.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that to me is what masculine is, not having muscle. So I feel like they didn't, and this is just what I think, they don't like Iris Kyle's look. They don't think it's marketable.
But who's they? The judges gave her 10 Olympia titles, so they obviously like her look. It's someone else that doesn't like her look, and that's what I don't know.
Dave, honestly, I mean,
might be the same people that don't like your look, Right. It's not the IFBB that doesn't like it. There's something behind the scenes. You're suggesting it, and I'm agreeing with you. Someone behind the scenes is pulling strings, and they're not admitting that they're pulling strings because the best bodybuilders are not being encouraged to be in bodybuilding. And if that's not the case, then get rid of women's bodybuilding and just make women's physique the category. You said it yourself. You're right. The women's physique winner could have won the women's bodybuilding there by the standards that they set forth at that Omaha show. Correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think you're right.
I mean, yeah, you can't say me holding an extra 3 pounds of water or not being dry or like, no, man, it doesn't replace missing body parts and me outweighing them by 35 pounds, like 40 pounds.
Yeah.
There was the top 3 girls, I talked to them at the Meet the Athletes, and they're like, oh, you're going to walk this show. And, like really super nice and super supportive. And then it's like, it's just so disappointing. It feels so disrespectful.
Yeah. You know what, Aleesha, just on a personal note, I used to get the same thing. I'd be backstage pumping up the hardest guy, the biggest guy backstage, and then they would be like, everyone would be like, and then we'd all get off stage, and I'd be like 6th. And they'd be like, all the guys that beat me would be like, oh, I thought you were going to win the show. And I'm like, yeah, it makes me feel good, but it didn't make me feel good because I didn't do well. So I understand where you're coming from, but one of the things I learned was that don't take anything personally. The key is to keep showing up. You can't lose if you don't give up. If you give up because you get frustrated by the way you're being treated or the way you're being judged, then you know what? Then you've lost, because if you want change to happen, you got to keep showing up so that people say this should not happen. This is an injustice. We need to change this, and it will change if it's warranted. And I think in your case, if you come in in the best shape of your life and have more muscle, and you can present it in a feminine way, then you should be winning shows. And I think it's a shame. I wouldn't want to see you give up, because you're only 32 years old. You are the future of women's bodybuilding if it's going to continue to exist. I mean, all these other girls are in the almost 50, you know?
Right. I really do, which it makes me super sad to say this, because I love bodybuilding. And it's really been the only place that I feel like embraces my natural genetics. But I really do believe that this is the beginning of the end. I really do believe that it's, and Dave, it's not about giving up. I was sent a very, very clear message. Like, first to last place, I was sent a very, very clear message. And financially, doing these shows from a business point of view just doesn't make sense.
Right.
It honestly doesn't.
Doesn't make sense to anyone to do any show. You know that. I mean, come on.
No, if you're placing in the top 5 in the world, then it makes sense.
Barely pays your expenses. Barely.
But at the end of the day, like, if I provide what my fans want to see, that's who supports me.
Right.
And that's who encourages me. The IFBB's never paid any of my bills.
Right.
I've never made any money competing, ever.
Well,
and guess what? Like, I'll never get a sponsor because I'm not a bikini chick, which is fine. But I need to go where it makes financial sense. And competing in the shows, show after show after show, it doesn't. Right. I mean, even if I would have won Omaha, I would have maybe broke even with the money that I put into it.
Well, don't you do it though because it's your passion? I mean, that's why we all compete. It has nothing. We would all compete for nothing, most of us, because we just love it. And that's why I always tell people, look, compete because you like it. Don't compete for placings, because you'll always be disappointed, because only one person's ever happy, Mr. Right. Olympia, and there's only one Mr. Olympia or Miss Olympia or whatever you want to call it. So I always tell people, compete because you love it. When you stop loving it, stop competing.
Right. And that's where I'm at. Like, I feel like this prep actually took away from my life. It didn't add to it.
Mm-hmm. Had you won, would it have added to it?
No, I don't think so. I just don't think. I think competing brings out a side of me that I'm a very competitive person. I'm an athlete. I've always been an athlete. And I just don't feel like this federation is ran like a sport. Oh. And I don't. I want to participate in something that is a sport and that I'm competitive at. I'm not a participant, right? I guess that's the difference. I'm a competitor, not a participant. I don't just show up for the experience and to chat with all the athletes, and I don't. Like, I compete to win.
Right, but because it's...
And I take a ton of time away from my family and my friends and my daughter, and to take last place, like, I will not sacrifice my personal life and things that mean so much to me to be treated that way.
Well, I tell people all the time, a lot of competitors come to me and they show me their pictures, or I'm at the show and they say, what do you think? And sometimes I'll see a beautiful bikini girl. Johnny's seen me, talk to these girls. They come off stage, they're like, I don't understand what happened. I was in the third call out. And I look at them, I'm like, you know what? I got to be honest with you. I would have had you winning. The fact that they put you last is better than if you would have placed fourth. Because if you would have placed fourth, they would have said, well, there were 3 girls better than you, and there weren't. The fact that you were last means that who's ever running that judging panel was not obviously paying attention to what was going on, because they missed you. And a lot of times these same competitors will then go and do the next show and they wind up winning. And they're like, and they call me up or they text me or they email me and they thank me and say, you know what, I was going to quit, but when you talked to me and said that to me and you gave me that encouragement, I said, I'm going to try one more time, and then all of a sudden everything changes. It's not because I made a phone call. It's because sometimes people get missed, and when they get missed, or the judges make a rash decision because they judge the class too quickly, maybe what happened with you, they start making excuses why you didn't do well because they really don't want to say, hey, we missed you, or something didn't go right. So that's why I'm saying sometimes it's not a good idea. It wasn't like you did 5 shows in a row and you came in last all 5 shows. So take that for what it's worth.
I could see missing somebody in a lineup of 200 bikini girls.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying.
I can see that, Dave.
Yeah.
I can see that. But there are only 8 of us up there.
Yeah, but you were standing behind Sean Ray, so how the hell are they going to judge you?
Right. But why would I continue to pursue something that is so disrespectful?
Yeah. Well, you know what the problem is? It's nothing personal. Bodybuilding is a subjective sport. It's a pageant. It's really not a sport because you're not doing anything on stage except displaying the way you look. And that's open to the interpretation of the panel of judges that sits there. And the panel of judges that were sitting in front of you in Omaha will not be the same judges that sit in front of you in Chicago or what other shows there are this year. So like I'm saying, don't take it personally, Aleesha. I think you got a lot of talent. We'd hate to see you leave the sport just because of a bad experience here on stage. Obviously, it's a personal decision. There is sacrifice and money involved, and that's something you have to come to grips with. But that's just my interpretation and my experience.
The feedback moving forward is to lose 20 pounds of muscle.
I don't believe you have to do that.
20%, but that is the true feedback from them.
I don't believe it.
For the category as a whole. So financially, that doesn't make sense for any of us big girls.
I'm going to get Tim Gardner and interview him on the air. We're going to get him live with.
Big girls. The big girls are what the fans want to see. Yeah. Well, and that is what they'll pay to see, and that is what they're interested in.
I agree. I think they're missing the mark. I'm gonna do an interview with Tim Gardner because he's got a bunch of shows coming up anyway. So we'll get him on, and we're gonna ask him about the women's bodybuilding, since he seems to have a lot of invested in it with his sponsors and everything like that. And let's see what his feedback is, because I just think that you were overlooked, to be honest with you. And
I wasn't even looked at. Yeah. That was the problem.
All right. Well, look.
I worked my ass off, and to not hit a mandatory pose under decent lighting was so insulting. I've never felt so disrespected.
Well, sorry that you had a bad experience up on stage. Hopefully, you could overcome this, and we will see you back on a bodybuilding stage, because I think that you're a good representative of the sport. And I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come on here and talk to us, because obviously it's hard to talk when you didn't win. It's always easy to do an interview after you win the show because you're in a good mood. And I understand that, and so I respect you coming on here and giving us your deep felt opinions.
Well, and it's really not even just about my own personal one bad experience. It's about my sadness for the sport as a whole and the direction that it's going. It's really disappointing.
Well, it's disappointing that they got rid of women's bodybuilding at the Olympia. That's the disappointing thing. I mean, right off the bat. I mean, let's call it what it is. If it wasn't for the guys over and gals at Wings of Strength, there would not be any women's bodybuilding. They're supporting the sport right now, keeping it in business. And how long that happens for, we don't know, and hopefully.
Well, and genetically, some of us, honestly, I don't think I could ever do physique.
No.
That is why we have different categories, right? Not everybody is meant to be a bikini girl. Not everybody is meant to be a figure girl.
100%. Bill Dobbins said it best. There's been an evolution of women's bodybuilding, and it evolved to a point of bigger girls, giving them a venue to showcase their muscle. And now that they created women's physique, you really can't even, you don't have to rein back women's bodybuilding anymore, because you have another category that fills that void. And I had been advocating for years. And so now there's a category between figure and women's bodybuilding, where women who want to be muscular and who want to be ripped and who want to perform bodybuilding poses can do it. And it's there. And then women's bodybuilding is for the girls that are bigger than the women's physique girls, the ones that don't want to rein it back, the ones that want to, display maximum muscularity in a feminine way. Of course, we want to keep that qualification there. And so I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why they're confusing, the way they're judging this. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
I'll get to the bottom of it, if anyone will. I'll probably get in trouble doing it, but I will get to the bottom of it, I promise you. Aleesha, thanks for taking time out of your schedule, and keep us updated on what you got going on.
Okay, thanks for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.
All right, and that's going to take us to the end of another episode of Live With, brought to you by Yamamoto Nutrition. I'm Dave Palumbo, and we'll see you next time.